The joy of cutting your hair short is so fleeting. In fact, I want to say it's a scam. Howdy, hey, it's Casey. Welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year! I love the new year, not only because of its themes of a new beginning and growth and whatnot. I love hearing other people's New Year's resolutions. It's just so fun for me. You get to learn so much about a person through the resolution alone. And it also gives you the opportunity to reflect on yourself, and it just gives perspective. And nothing tickles me more than listening to my 15-year-old sister and listening to her New Year's resolutions. That is the time where you are constantly changing and experimenting with your interests and what you like to do. She's a product of an algorithm that I wrote, so it's really fun to listen to her. And this year, her resolutions are formatted as such: in and out. For this year, her out is a very specific large conglomerate brand. She's gonna try to stop shopping from them as often. Her in this year is actually thrifting more. I'm so happy she came to that on her own despite my overbearingness. She chose to do that. I'm so proud of her. She asked me what my list contained. I said in, buying less, out, thrifting. The contrast, that's where it gets juicy. It's interesting because I used to make this joke, and I still make this joke. I need to commit a crime at my local Savers so they no longer let me in. When I was younger, I always thought I was clever because I had resources like an older sister with a boyfriend who could drive. We would go to the thrift store and the dollars in my hand would turn into Benjamins, and I would walk out with bags. Doing a little fashion show for my parents when I got home, and then showing up to school, finger ready on the trigger to say, "Thanks, I thrifted it." I've been thrifting for almost a decade now, and I'm so proud of the closet I built and the things that I've learned about clothes in general. I still love secondhand. I love it. But something pokes at my side. What's with the dichotomy of our resolutions? Is it a generational difference? Is it the individual themselves, my sister and I, different MBTI personalities? Am I just a recovering addict? Has thrifting changed? Or have I? Welcome to my thesis defense. I want to talk about the evolution of thrifting and the evolution of my own self and how the qualities of each end up affecting each other. So let's get into it. One of the largest changes that we see is fast fashion infiltration. In the past, thrift stores were seen as a haven for unique, affordable pieces. If we take a look back at thrift stores and its inventory quality, you're gonna see a better quality of items. The anatomy of people's closets back then does not compare to what it is today. Pieces that were once loved, and you could see the reason why when you picked it up at the thrift store. Now, with the rise of fast fashion, brands are producing cheap, trendy clothing to keep up with society's breakneck speed of consumption. And to no surprise, when the piece no longer serves its purpose, it's going to the thrift store. But Casey, why is this a problem? They're donating clothes to those who need them. Let me explain. Take this with a grain of salt. I have no problem with people donating clothing to the thrift store. That principle itself, give those who have less than you do. That's fine. One needs to compare a wool sweater to a polyester sweater. One's circle of life is linear, while the other is truly circular. There's a concept called planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence refers to a strategy where items are intentionally designed to have a limited lifespan, which prompts the customer to replace them more frequently. Your favorite brand is susceptible to this. They are capable of doing this to you. For a polyester sweater, it may manifest in this way. 1. Material degradation. Polyester can be durable, it's plastic, but it can lose its shape, its color, and its softness over time, especially after repeated washing. And you gotta wash that thing because that shit can stink. It is not moisture wicking. Polyester is also a fan favorite material of a lot of these fast fashion brands. So not only are they not meant to last, these trendy items may feel outdated even though the garment is still wearable. So now we have the linear life cycle. The linear life cycle is a model that describes how clothing is made, used, and disposed of. And it typically follows these stages. Resource extraction. Polyester is derived from petroleum, a non-renewable resource. 2. Manufacturing. Polyester fibers are spun, dyed, and constructed into a sweater. 3. Consumption. Sweater is purchased and worn by the consumer. Disposal. Once the sweater is worn out of style, or damaged, it is typically just thrown away or donated. But since polyester is not biodegradable, it can sit in a landfill for many, many years. With the combination of planned obsolescence and a linear life cycle, and this ends up in somebody else's hands, there is no beginning. And yes, I am using definitive terms. And yes, there are some pieces that are donated and can be bought. And they're probably right here, but eventually it'll go down like this. Silver lining, silver lining, silver lining. I'm happy that these pieces are ending up in somebody's closet instead of the landfill, but it will eventually end up in the landfill. It's just a delayed response. It's so heartbreaking to go into a thrift store and you're going through the racks. Shein, Princess Polly, H&M, Shein, and knowing that these pieces did not need to be bought. Mind you, I don't have a problem with trends at all. I think trends are really healthy. It encourages experimentation. Tangent. But if you love a striped sweater, buy it once, buy it well. Buy a wool one, buy a cotton one, anything but polyester. And if you decide that striped sweater no longer serves you and you can donate it, that has a circular life cycle. Wool is a natural, renewable resource ethically harvested from sheep. Unlike synthetic fibers, sheep produce new wool every year, making it inherently sustainable if managed properly. Manufacturing. The wool is spun, dyed, and knitted into a sweater. Manufacturers in a circular system. Circular must be circular. Aim to minimize environmental impacts by using eco-friendly dyes and processes, ensuring that the sweater can be easily recycled or biodegraded at the end of its life. Consumption. The wool sweater is purchased and worn by the consumer. Since wool is durable, naturally wrinkle-resistant, odor-resistant, the sweater tends to last longer than synthetic garments, reducing the need for frequent replacement. When the sweater no longer serves you, you can donate it. And if it no longer can be wearable, it can actually be repurposed into something new. I've seen someone cut up a sweater and turn it into mittens. Wool is biodegradable, so when it finally reaches the end of its life, it decomposes naturally, releasing nutrients back into the soil and closing the loop in the life cycle. It is effing circular. We used to see circular life cycle pieces in the thrift constantly. Now we only see this. This also means there are less quality items left in the thrift store for those who truly have no other affordable option. In thrifting, there's also now a changing attitude for the better, not cynical like me. Then thrifting was a bit niche. It carried a little bit of a stigma. Every time I say stigma, I want to say sigma. When I was in high school, it was at the cusp of something very niche and like uncool. I lived in Northern Virginia most of my life, and if you thrifted out of financial necessity, you're booted out. It's a festering space for classism. But now thrifting is so popular, it's even helped people build their online following. I used to be the only person wearing Doc Martens in a thrift store, but now I see kids wearing Rick Owens. Kids, plural. I'm happy about that. I'm a huge proponent for helping the local economy and, of course, the opportunity for people to work. I love how the perspective has changed significantly about thrifting and that there is no shame. But of course, these thrift stores aren't dumb. They're going to increase the prices. Let's talk about supply and demand. When demand increases, price increases. It's funny, it's gotten to the point where some of these prices are egregiously expensive. But then of course, with the drive of price, I hope that we are continuing to train and compensate employees fairly. There really isn't a pricing professional. Staff is trained to decide what or what not to price. I think the primary goal for thrift stores before was to turnover and donation management rather than maximizing an individual item's profit. I have an anecdote. Once I was thrifting and I saw a Louis Vuitton top. I was like, and my local Goodwill? And the thing is, they were charging $70 for it. And I'm like, okay, let's take a look. At the composition label. It's 100% polyester. I take a look deeply in the tag, and it's actually supposed to be a work uniform. I don't know if it's for somebody working in store or whatnot. We want to think of people's intentions as good. They were trying to maximize the most they can get for this piece. These thrift stores are for profit, and that's okay. But these thrift stores also need to be a bit more mindful about the way they are pricing these things. And not only that, you even see these fast fashion pieces being probably priced way more than what they were sold for. And definitely way more than what these women and families were paid for making it. If I'm going to a thrift store to find a deal and I don't find one, I'm not gonna buy anything. That's just plain and simple. There's now a rise in online thrifting and resale platforms. I also think it's the effect of COVID. Brands and businesses are no longer seeing the value in a brick and mortar experience. But now there are so many app platforms. ThredUp is seeing a gross profit of 12% year over year. RealReal is about to reach 600 million gold doubloons. And I love the rise of thrift apps. It has created accessibility sustainability. Old, young. There are people who can not only afford to drive, they can't drive. There are people who are sick who still want the experience of thrifting and owning that very special piece. And of course, last but not least, there is a change in the sustainability mindset. But now it's become an alternative to combat society's consumption habits. But again, because God gave us free will, we are susceptible to overconsumption in thrifting as well. I found this in myself. I'm skipping ahead a bit here. I would take home bags and bags of clothes that didn't fit me, had holes in it, and just wasn't really my style, but in the moment I was like, I need this, I need this. Thrifting or not, that is consumption. It's like choosing the lesser evil. And recently when I was cleaning out my closet, I was donating back clothes that I thrifted that still had tags on it. But I didn't know then, but I know now. But overall, Casey, has thrifting changed for the worse, for the better? It's a combination of the two things. It just depends on what you value. There's an article that I referenced that the golden era of thrifting is over. I am leaning towards that conclusion that thrifting is no longer what it was before. But is it really the thrift store's fault? Or are thrift stores reacting to consumers' choices? Let's dive into the consumer, shall we? And I don't have a survey for this. I only have a survey of one customer. Me. Opportunity cost. If you're not familiar with opportunity cost, one of the most simple examples are, should I go to college or should I continue to work? A person may find going to work more valuable. One person may find going to college more valuable. Just depends on the cost of the opportunity. Over time, my opportunity costs have changed. I'm an adult now. I have a 9-to-5. I like to make content on the side. I have hobbies. I like seeing my friends and my family. There's a lot of things I choose to spend my time doing rather than going out to the thrift store. Plus, I like to save money. If I truly do not need anything, I'm not going to a thrift store. Of course, when it comes to opportunity cost, we need to consider the trade-offs. In my case, many of you know that I like to prioritize practical shopping over spontaneous discoveries. Spontaneous discovery sounds like a lot of fun, but it's just not where my head is at anymore. It might be a bit more appealing to my younger sister since she is the beginning of her personal style journey. Second, I think that I no longer suffer from brand blindness. I used to care so much when I was younger that I was wearing Urban Outfitters. I could not afford Urban Outfitters brand new. I still can't afford it, but thrifting made Urban Outfitters more accessible to me. Today, I still do care where that piece is from in regards to the ethical manufacturing and whatnot. I really care about the composition label. And some brands truly align themselves with this, which is why brands can be seen as important. But if we're gonna bring it down to the foundational level, I really am not a brand seeker the way I was before. Brand blindness can also lead to overconsumption, and this can be seen in thrifting. I used to buy things with holes in it just because it was from J. Crew. Why did I do that? But definitely I found people on the internet thrift things just because it has a brand on it. I think thrift stores are really taking advantage of that brand blindness, and that's what causes those massive markups. And this occurs in new shopping as well, but that's for another time. Now my buying power has changed. If we circle back to opportunity cost, I'm not rich by any means, but I understand the value of my time and my hard-earned money. If I really want that perfect 100% black turtleneck, I am not going to spend my time going store to store to store to store to store to go find one. If I find a reputable brand, I like where they're sourcing it, and it's my size, guaranteed, and it costs a little bit more than what you would find regularly at a thrift store, I will opt to buy the new one. It saves me time, and in the long term can save me money. You're still capable of doing this thrifting, but the odds are very low. And buying power is not only found within the dollar that you hold in your hands. And I have more buying power because I have more privilege, I have a job, I have more financial security. We need to talk about buying power in the context of time and accessibility. One has more buying power now because of the rise of online resale platforms. You are no longer confined to your local thrift store. You can access inventory across the country, even outside of the United States, and you can filter it down to the very size, color, and material. Buyers are now given more options and even price points. It has become fairly competitive in pricing. If you don't like the price of that Givenchy dress, you can find it somewhere else at a completely different price. Lower, ideally. The efficiency of these online resale platforms, again, time saving. The opportunity cost of time spent searching, it reduces your hunting time to half or even to a quarter because you can just search it up and in your size, in your style, in your color, all that good stuff. Thrifting in store really minimizes your buying power. Tiny. you can only do so much. Last but not least, personal style. I have a better idea, I'm not complete, of what I am looking for. Somebody in the comments is gonna say minimalism is just a trend. I still do dopamine dress. I still have pieces that are really funky and fun because they call to me, and not everything is a trend. Pipe down. There's a shift in priorities in myself and in thrift stores. My focus has shifted from a quantity one to a quality one, and I just really want to be a conscious consumer. Personal style is personal. It's a lifelong one. It's not instantaneous. And that's what thrifting has allowed me to do in the past. The illusion that I could experiment without a real cost. When in reality, I think it's a rite of passage. If you're really interested in dressing up and finding yourself, you need to start thrifting. My 15-year-old sister is just at the beginning of her journey, and thrifting in person hasn't made it any easier. But at the same time, I discuss a rise of thrifting, so it may even be better for her. I still love secondhand clothes, and maybe if the thrifting now existed then when I was 14, I ask myself, would I still be thrifting? But again, this is my personal journey. It's all about finding what works for you. Whether it's sticking to a plan or embracing spontaneity, focusing on quality, or just stepping away from it altogether, that's up to you. At the end of the day, fashion and dressing up should always fit your lifestyle, not the other way around. And if that means thrifting is still part of your journey, that's awesome. If not, that's okay too. I'm really curious to see if you guys observed a change in thrifting and how your experience has changed. And if your New Year's resolution is to thrift less or thrift more, that's okay. Make this year a great one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. To be honest, the only thing that's actually keeping me in this thrift store right now is that they're playing Ariana Grande's Christmas album.